right, you are back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. A little tear came to my eye today watching the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the murderous, violent bloodbath it is. A little tear came to my eye because one of the greatest fighters of all time, Khabib Nurmagomedov, retired today. Firstly, the fight, Khabib is an absolutely stone cold fucking murderer. They felt it out for a couple of minutes and then he just charged straight for him, Justin Gaethje. And Gaethje, if that's how you say his name, two fucking fighters, you can barely say their name. Nurmagomedov and the with a J in it. But Khabib just chased him down, forced the pressure. He was eating punches. It was like he was a fucking cyborg just going after him. And Gaethje has heavy fucking hands too. But it was at the end of the fight where I really got interested. Khabib cried. There's something about this guy. Khabib is just like, I don't know what he is. He's just this pure sort of guy. Like he's a murderer. Like he's an ice cold killer. But he has a heart of gold, it seems like. I don't know how you reconcile those two things. Anyway, for those of you who don't know the story behind Khabib, and this is the last episode I'll be doing on fucking sports as well. It's been a big weekend. Just take another sports day. This will be the last one. There's no more sports in Australia after this besides the cricket, and no one gives a fuck about the cricket. Although it is Australia versus India this year. But yeah, don't worry, I'll be back doing hypotheticals tomorrow. So Khabib, who's a Russian from Dagestan, something like that. Look it up. Or should I have looked it up? I don't know. It's a Muslim area inside of Russia. So I assume before Khabib became world champion, they weren't treated very well. Anyway, Khabib's coach was his dad for like 20 years. He made him world champion. At the start of this year, Khabib's dad had complications due to COVID-19 and ended up passing away. And Khabib obviously was fucking devastated. He missed the fight with Tony Ferguson. Then Ferguson lost to Gaethje. And so Gaethje and Khabib fought for the title today. And after the fight, which Khabib won by triangle submission, he retired. He said his mum didn't even want him to take this fight, but he's like, I have to take this fight. I have to close the book on my career. And his mum's like, no, I don't want you. I don't want you to fight without your dada in your corner. And Khabib's like, Mum, I promise this will be my last fight. And so he said that at the end of the fight. He's like, I promised my mum that this was going to be my last fight and I always keep my word. And he put his gloves in the middle of the ring. He teared up. I teared up. The rest of the crowd teared up. And so that was the last fight of the greatest UFC fighter I've ever seen. So fucking dominant. Just annihilated every single fucking person that came near him. Thank God I woke up early to watch that. I was gonna fucking ditch it too. It was great. And then there was the Rugby League Grand Final, which I just finished watching, and that was a little bit of a heart stopper at the end. But before I get into that, let's get into some fucking lockdown news. So lockdown in Victoria was meant to end today. They were meant to open up the whole fucking state again today. But they didn't because there was some fucking mysterious outbreak in North Victoria or North Melbourne or some shit like that. The north of Melbourne. And there's been 1,000 people tested. And they're just waiting on the results of those tests because there was a fucking mini outbreak. What's the bet half of them have COVID and we stretch this out another fucking month? If it's 1,000 people, just lock down those fucking 1,000. Say to them, you're not allowed out of your fucking house until you get your results back. The rest of you can go out. But I was out today anyway and no one gives a fuck. There was no social distancing. No one gives a fuck. Everyone's over it. Just give each other COVID. So yeah, Victoria's still under lockdown even though we only have 5 cases per day. Sydney has more cases than us per day and they just had the NRL Grand Final with a crowd of 40,000 people. And it's not even mandatory to have masks there. That's what we're talking about here. So the Rugby League Grand Final was on tonight. Just finished watching it. It was a fucking real shit game up until the last 3 minutes. Melbourne Storm ended up with 11 players on the field. If Penrith had 2 or 3 more minutes, I reckon they win that game. Or if a couple of fucked up things in the first half went their way, they would have won that. Although they did get that bullshit try in the second half. I bet the boys out in Blaney and Bathurst are pretty fucking upset tonight. There will be a few sorrowful drinks at old Bathurst Panthers tonight. I would not like to be wearing a Melbourne Storm fucking jersey around there tonight. But that's all I've done this weekend, just watch sport. And because all these legends are retiring, I'm going back and watching their old things. Like Khabib, I went and watched a couple of his chokeouts. He is just a fucking monster. Cameron Smith, I started doing research into him. He's played in 8 grand finals. He's played 420-something games of rugby league. And for those of you who don't know what rugby league is, and that is the majority of you, it's the most brutal fucking sport in the world. NFL gridiron is probably more high impact and explosive, but nothing's tougher than fucking rugby league. Not even rugby union. League is just run into a brick wall of flesh for 80 minutes. Over and over. It's a fucking nightmare. And then you've got the big ass Polynesians and fucking Maoris running into you. And they're built like brick shithouses. I just thank God I didn't grow up in Sydney or Queensland playing fucking rugby league or union. I mean, I would have been an absolute fucking gun at it. But yeah, I don't think it's my thing. The worst part about it is rugby league like attracts the Maoris, the Islanders and all that sort of shit. And in under 12s, they're about 6'4". They've got full beards. Their junk is like a baby's arm. And then you've got all the whiteys who don't even mature till they're like 36. Just getting ragdolled by these fucking giants. I wouldn't even like to play under 12s rugby right now. I don't think I would make it through a game. And then by the time you get to the under 18s, these guys are rocking up in cars. They've already got 3 kids. You're like, whose dad's that? And it's like, no, that's 17-year-old Papapapali Fafidu. I did play one game of rugby union when I was at university. I think it was for university. I can't remember. Whatever the yellow and blue team was. But there's a photo of me before the game and after the game. It's like you spot the difference. It's like, which one is the photo before the game, which one's after the game? Because there was very little difference in my uniform. It was still extremely clean. I remained virtually untouched for 80 minutes. But I did touch the ball twice. Anyway, that's it for tonight. And that's the end of the big sporting weekend here in Australia. Normal programming will be commencing tomorrow. Alright, I'll see you the fuck later.